The Greek crisis is not over. In fact, it has just begun. Today we will discuss how Citi is predicting a hyperinflation for Greece. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's get into Greece. As I said, it's not over yet. And there is a rumor, a report, that the Greek Prime Minister asked the Russian President Putin for $10 billion in order to print drachmas. That's according to this newspaper here. I'm not sure if this is true. It is a report. It sounds reasonable, but let's take it for what it is, and we'll keep our eyes on it in the future. The newspaper reported that Tsipras saying his last major interview to Greek national broadcaster, in order for a country to print its own national currency, it needs reserves in a strong currency. They're trying to make deals here, and this is very interesting. We've heard a lot of reports about it before. Moscow's response was a vague mention of a $5 billion advance on the new South Stream natural gas pipeline construction that will pass through Greece. Tsipras also sent similar requests to China and Iran, but to no avail. So essentially, they did not want to go ahead with this. It seems also that they did not want Greece to leave the Eurozone. That's very interesting information. I'm going to move on to this right here. Our big news of the day. Citi predicts Greek hyperinflation breaks out in 2 years. It was a number that caught our attention. Citi's estimate for Greek inflation in 2017, that's 22.5%. Imagine where you live today if inflation was 22.5%. You, your neighbors, your family, you're going to be hurting big time. Everything that you go to buy now changes because you need to start deciding, do I buy more of that now? Do I wait for the hyperinflation? What should I do about my home? Should I sell things? What do I do about my job? They're laying people off, so on and so forth. It's very important news. In other words, Citi predicts that by 2017, Greece will have a hyperinflation even if it remains in the Eurozone. It's very, very dangerous here when they're sort of forced under this Eurozone and they don't have a choice of their monetary fiscal policies. Everything is decided and dictated by their rulers. And anyway, you can read on right here. I want to move on to this Reuters article. Greek bank NBG turns down role in bonds, citing capital controls, sources say. The National Bank of Greece actually declined to buy the bonds from the Eurozone's bailout fund in a sale on Tuesday because of the Greece capital controls, bankers said, a sign of the country's financial isolation. Even the National Bank of Greece doesn't want to touch this garbage. They've probably figured, let someone else buy it, let the IMF buy it, let somebody else take care of this garbage. We don't want it on our books. We don't want to be like the Federal Reserve buying all the garbage for everyone else. We can't handle that. Let's move on. Bank Union appeals to Greeks to return their money to banks. Imagine that. Okay, guys, you were scared. You pulled all your money out, but just give it back, and that's going to solve the problem of people taking their money out. Doesn't make a single ounce of sense to me. Anyway, president of the Greek Banks Association appealed at the citizens to return their money to banks. Banks are absolutely trustworthy. As guaranteed by the ECB and the Bank Association, they would have been even more powerful if 40 billion euros had not been withdrawn in the last months. So, if you want the banks to take care of you, just give us all your money and everything's going to be okay. That's right. Lay your head down and sleep and everything is going to be just fine. Now that the banks are open, after this 3-week holiday on capital controls, they're asking, please bring the money back in. You're safe here. In my book, I show you a very, very clear diagram, I've shown you this before, of how the monetary system works in its most simplest terms. At the very bottom, you have real assets. When you go to the bank and you get, your financial advice, according to the banker, he's only talking and only going to associate your savings and your investments and your decisions on this bottom triangle, the real assets. You probably can't even read that font, it's so small. And above that is what we have fractional reserve banking. So if the Greeks needed money, they pulled out the 40 billion. It's not the 40 billion that they need. It's all based on the fractional reserve banking. So depending on how much their reserve ratio was, they needed a lot more, but they use fractional reserve banking in order to basically magnify their profits. But it also magnifies their losses when people take money out. Very, very really scary to think about when you have so many people all rushing to get their money out at the same time, the bank run. But all you have to do is call a bank holiday and you'll prevent that from occurring. Of course, you won't prevent the riots on the streets. Above that is derivatives. Get into that in other videos and in my e-course as well. And I'll just note the point at the bottom. The banking system, real assets are on the bottom, attempting to support the massive fraud that sits on top. And I'm going to stay with that and admit and tell you specifically that everything above that bottom triangle is a fraud. I want to move on quickly here just to note two different articles that I have, or two different things. MNI China Business Indicator. We're moving back into the levels of 2009. How many times do I have to report globally that we have run into the same Lehman crisis era problems? There is no other channel on YouTube, no other, let's say the mainstream media, that's for sure, that is reporting this many indicators, showing you the charts visually so that you can see this for yourself. I've shown you different places in Europe. I've shown you this for South America, even in towards Asia. And we look at, obviously within the US, the same problems are occurring. All showing you 6 years backwards. We have gone at least 6 years backwards in countless indicators. Yeah, the stock market could be rising today, tomorrow, doesn't matter. Look at the actual real indicators of a particular economy. This one happens to be China. And just one last one here. Hacker remotely crashes Jeep from 10 miles away. This is amazing if you haven't heard about this already. Security experts warn that more than 470,000 cars made by Fiat Chrysler could be at risk of being attacked by similar means, including those driven in the UK. So we have this hackers who are able to take over. The cars have more computers in them now than they ever have. And this allows for some pretty fantastic features within the car. But it also opens up whole security flaws. This reminds me of what's happening with the political system and banking system, how we give up our control to the corporations, to the banking sector, to the politicians, and what happens? Well, somebody takes over. Whether that's a, let's call it hacker from the inside, whether it's done intentionally, or whether it's just someone from the outside. Let's say you give them all your social security number and your all your private information, credit cards, and so on, and it's with a so-called safe database, perhaps with the government. But what if someone hacked it? Then all of your documentation is gone. That's stolen. You cannot give up your sovereignty or control ever. You need to retain that. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that a lot. I really look into your comments and your concerns that you might have, because that's the way that I mold the channel here. And although the page isn't loading right now, I would just ask you right here to please take a look at my book. And it is at Amazon. You can actually flip through it there for yourself. You go over to the Amazon webpage and there's a look inside feature, which allows you to flip through the book and see if you like it for yourself. Take care.